Good evening. In an effort to fight corruption and bring about accountability and transparency, government brought into being a public procurement law a couple of years ago. My guest tonight is the man responsible for enforcing that law. In a part of the world where corruption is so rife, how on earth does he plan to succeed? Mr. A.B Adjei, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Dave.
You have a big job.
Yes, I do.
Am I right?
Yes, I do.
Why do you agree that your job is big?
I agree that the job is big because this is the first time in the history of this country that we have a law which is supposed to regulate the practice of procurement in this country.
Will it make any difference?
For sure, it should.
It should.
It should, because we find it to be the solution to what existed in the previous regimes, or what I would say previous procurement regimes.
We used to have a central tender board.
Yeah.
What do we have now? A public procurement board of which you're chief executive.
There is a big difference between the two.
What is the difference, sir?
The difference is that the central tender board was more or less a central procurement arrangement where they procure on behalf of the state. Now, the public procurement board itself is not a procurement institution.
What is
it? It is a monitoring and regulatory agency.
That ensures what?
Yeah, and its primary responsibility is to ensure the effective implementation of the law. And in the law, we have various structures that gives powers to institutions who are expected to do procurement at their level.
What does the public procurement law say? Please give me the essence of the law. What is the law?
Essentially, like I said, it is a solution to the previous procurement regime.
Am I correct when I say that's part of the way to fight corruption?
Yes, of course. We say that this law is by itself a disincentive to corruption.
How?
It is.
How?
Because of the structures that it has inbuilt. You see, if I go back to say how the board was established and the object of the board, that will give you an explanation as to what we seek to do and what we hope to achieve.
I just want you to tell me in simple terms what you seek to do and hope to achieve.
Yeah. The object of the board is to ensure that public sector procurement will be carried out in a fair, transparent, and non-discriminatory manner, whilst ensuring that public funds, and for that matter state resources, will be judiciously, economically, and efficiently used.
And how does it do that? How do you achieve that?
Yes. So you achieve this by visiting the various structures that has been put in place.
Right.
This law is built on 5 major pillars.
Right.
And these pillars constitute the entire sections, the entire provisions of the law.
Right.
The first pillar is that it is a comprehensive law.
Right.
It's got structures which is meant to ensure transparency in the entire procurement process.
Right.
Then you come to the second pillar, which is it's got clear and standardized procurement procedures.
Right.
And tender documentations. Then it also got structures to ensure that there will be proficiency within the staff who are to work in the various institutions. Competent, proficient people to work. That's proficient procurement staff. Then 4, it's got independent control measures. Last but not the least, it's got anti-corruption measures built into the law. So if I tell you that this law by itself is a disincentive to corruption, I tell you that there are provisions that addresses all manner and practices of corruption, and there is also a deterrent, because it is in this law for the first time in this country that it's got a clause or a provision that stipulates, or as it were prescribes, punishment for anybody who contravenes any provision of the law.
Tell me, in real life, is it making corruption less? This is my point.
Yes, we are in a position to measure performance, to be able to report on the level of corruption and how corruption is indeed declining. I'll tell you what, this is the first time that procurement decisions are being taken in a collective manner. In the old regime, a head of an entity could decide as to who he wants to award a contract to. Under this law, the structures are such that we have introduced what we call the procurement or the entity tender committee system, of which the head of the entity is only the chairperson, assisted by 8 other members. 3 or 4 of them are within the institution.
Large bureaucracy.
It's not large bureaucracy. And 4 of them are coming from outside institutions, such as the Office of the Attorney General and members of Parliament. Now, the idea is to ensure that, whereas in the past, people could arrogate to themselves the power to award contract indiscretionally, this time around, you need to have a collective body to take a decision. Coming back to the various methods under this law, nobody has the power, for instance, to sole source any procurement without seeking prior permission.
So the disincentive is that you can't do it alone.
You can't do it alone.
But people in this country have ways of getting around these things.
I mean, and it's not only in this country.
Yeah,
people everywhere in the world.
So what is the point?
Yes, but then,
let's go back to what you said. I said I'd come back to that debate about tendering, how you tender.
Yes.
I mean, you have competitive tender.
Yes, the various methods of procurement.
And so on.
Yeah.
For example, I get told now, if you want a job, you have to come with 4 other people.
Yeah.
All I need to do is get 4 other companies also that get my friends to apply, tell them what to do. That's all I need.
No, you don't need to do that. You are not going to be able to get your friends around you to go and tender under this system. Why? Because depending on the method of procurement, and you see, this time, even the choice of a method of procurement is not that of you using your discretion.
Who decides?
We have thresholds, essentially expected or estimated values of the contracts you want to award.
So depending on the value of the contract,
depending on the value of the contract, it dictates which method of procurement you have to use. So the choice of method itself is not even in your hand.
But let me ask you something, sir. I mean, sometimes you've got this whole system of competitive so and so, and in the end, really, I mean, apart from the fact that somebody charges a little less, you really don't get a good service. There are good people sometimes. Give it to them alone.
Yeah.
Can't you do that?
You're talking about sole source.
Is that what they call it, sole source?
That's sole source.
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
Now, I'll tell you a story.
When is that allowed?
Sorry?
When is that allowed?
Yes, sole source is allowed under Section 40 of this law.
Tell me the story. That might explain. Tell me that story with me.
Now, under Section 41 and 2, Section 41 has got 6 other subsections. And they give you the conditions under which you could apply for sole source. One of which is when you have only one producer or manufacturer of a product, where that manufacturer has a patent right. So we call it for proprietary works, proprietary products. Okay. You will be allowed, because I mean, it will be very silly knowing that there is only one manufacturer of a particular product to say open it to competitive tendering.
Correct, sir.
2, where there is urgency.
Yeah.
Where there is urgent need to get certain materials and goods, works, and services.
Or maybe just because that person is the only person with the skill.
No, that is the first one. So we are looking at the various criteria. Yes, where the person, the only person with a skill, a consultant, whatever, you go to the person. Because he holds a proprietary right over the product or services. The second is urgency. The third is where there is a national disaster. A catastrophic event will occur if an action is not taken. You will not be able, under such circumstances, to go open competitive tendering. We also talk about where an organization, for purposes of standardization and compatibility, you see, products and equipment that you get into organizations, eventually it becomes there is a lot of sense to try to standardize products, to try to standardize equipment, to try to standardize spares. You understand? So where an institution has the need to standardize and to ensure there will be compatibility of its previous equipment and therefore the spares that goes with it, they could apply to the board and get exemption. The last but not the least is where, for purposes of national security, you will not be able to open a particular procurement to public tender.
To the public.
You have to apply to the board and get a waiver.
You know, Mr. Adjei, some of this competitive tender and all of this can be quite funny, if you ask me.
Yeah.
I have seen institutions take full-page advertisements and spend a substantial amount of money, because they can be expensive, trying to find people to come and supply diaries.
Yes.
Why? Why don't they just go and why?
Yeah, you see, again, that is where I talk about thresholds and methods of procurement.
So they've got the wrong.
They may be advertising for diaries when indeed the cost of the diary does not fall within that method they have applied.
That is the point.
Yes, it's as simple as that.
So you have to educate people
yes,
about
so
this.
we have this responsibility of building capacity and also educating.
But
you see, we have two ways of capacity building. The capacity we want to build is not only from the demand side.
Yeah.
The demand side is the institutions.
Yeah.
The supply side is the suppliers and contractors out there who do not, most of whom do not even understand tender documents. You know, more so
but
to,
it's complicated, sir.
no, but you see,
I have seen
introduction of any
World
system.
Bank documents.
Yes.
World Bank documents for you to
Yes.
provide just a
Yes.
little service
Yes.
with 1,000 funny
Yes.
provisions.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
just, you know, I mean,
Yes.
these are the things, if you ask me,
Yes.
that
Yes.
create the conditions for corruption. I don't see how that removes corruption.
It does, it will and should remove
It
corruption.
should.
Yes,
It should.
it should.
But you
remove
agree it
corruption.
can be
Yeah.
complicated.
It is complicated. It is complicated because of the lack of proficiency of procurement staff. I keep on, you see,
Yeah,
this
you-
whole system,
you're saying
of
that
this
whole
whole
procurement
arrangement,
thing is- yeah.
because you see, unless you're able to build capacity, unless you're able to train people
So
in
procurement is a profession?
It is a profession.
Procurement.
And we are developing procurement to become a career development within the public
So
service.
if we do that, that's one of the ways we will be able to control corruption.
That is the way we'll be able to effectively implement this law. And if you are able to effectively implement this law, you are effectively reducing and taking corruption out of this procurement system.
But you know, you are really in one hell of a position. You are
Yes.
saying suddenly that unless you approve something, you are the chief of public
Yeah.
procurement.
Yeah.
Government cannot buy anything. This is what you are suggesting. You are a powerful man,
Yeah.
but you are susceptible to corruption. Then people must come to you and say,
Yeah.
"We need you."
Yeah. And people will come to me only to make a submission in accordance with the guidelines that we've spelled out. So it is not, again, a matter of discretion. Even the kind of approval we give at the Public Procurement Board is not a matter of discretion. It is a matter of principle. So if we come to the board, all we ask for is to see that you satisfy the guidelines that we have prescribed to be able to give approval.
Is this efficient, or is this another of those things that takes forever?
It doesn't take forever. We are working round the clock.
How many are you on the board?
The board, you see, we're talking of two institutions. The board has board members.
People from where and from where?
It has got board members, which
Yeah.
are 9-member board, of
Right.
which I am both the chief executive and a member of the board.
Okay.
And then we have the secretariat
That's
that
it.
do the day-to-day running of the activities of the board.
And how are you chosen? Government just decided that you're a fine man, come and chair the board. Is that the case? Or
Well, the board members are appointed by the president.
by the president?
Yes.
So you're
But-
appointed by the president?
I'm coming. I said the board members are appointed by the president.
Right.
But the chief executive had to go through a competitive interview to be selected.
So you,
Only for the appointment to be endorsed by the
who
president.
do you report to, sir?
I report to the board.
To the
Yes.
president sometimes?
No, to the board.
You must tell me really
Yeah.
whether this institution
Yes.
is truly any different. I'm going back to my central tender board in the past.
Yeah.
The difference you say
Yes.
to me is
Yes.
now
We have a decentralized system.
it's a decentralized system.
Yes.
I want to understand that. Does that mean that people buy things at the local level, make the decision as to what they need? I mean, when you say at the local level, I don't understand that.
Absolutely.
What does that mean?
Yeah, the law defines which institution can be considered or regarded as an entity, procurement entity. So if you look at the scope of application of this law, it talks about every procurement for goods, works, and services which is financed in whole or in part by public funds. That institution, by the explanation I've given, comes under the scope of application of this law. Now, therefore, if you want me to just give you just a quick outline of which institutions are supposed to come under the umbrella of this law, you're talking about the governance institutions, the MDAs, the MMDAs, the hospitals, schools. And
MDAs is what? Ministries, departments, agencies?
and agencies. And then the MMDAs are the,
What is that?
the municipal and metropolitan district assemblies. All right? The governance institutions are the regional coordinating councils, the district assemblies, and whatever. All these institutions of government across the length and breadth of this country come under the scope of this law. And according to the law, each of these institutions that have been identified or classified as an entity are supposed to do their procurement and have these structures that I keep talking about established.
So all of this is not. So all of this is not there yet.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just.
Yeah, it's there.
Yeah, but what I mean is, but they are not people that understand it. They are not people to enforce it. But it's there.
It is there. The people to enforce are also there, because that is why I'm here. We are the people to ensure its enforcement.
But there are so many other levels of enforcement.
Yes.
We need.
Yes, the other levels, and the deficiency we see is lack of procurement units. One, you see, each institution under this arrangement is supposed to have a procurement unit and proficient procurement staff.
A government institution?
Yes, in the government.
So we're creating new offices in government institutions.
We're creating new jobs, if you like, because this is a profession that has lived with man from the existence of man.
Procurement.
Unfortunately, it is one of the functions or one of the disciplines which had been relegated to the background. You see, in the past, people were talking about stores.
Sorry,
talking about stores. Storekeepers.
Storekeepers.
You know, this profession, that is how people have seen it, as storekeepers. And you know the kind of people that they were keeping in the stores. The labor rejects and the lame in the organization. They throw them there ostensibly for them to go and convalescent, without knowing that you are keeping these people up there to oversee billions and billions of stock that you are keeping in those stores. Yet it is the labor rejects, it is the lame who are thrown out there because they can't find anything for them to go and convalescent over billions of cedis. So you can see the conceptuality, the concept or the conceptualization of this whole arrangement. You put people you think are not good to oversee billions of cedis. You see, so the trend is now turning to put and place these people in the right position. That the people who spend the money, the people who overlook the billions of assets, if you like, because stock is an asset of the company, we should open another eye and look at them and place them properly. Hence, this procurement law is making sure that we will develop capacity and make sure that we bring these procurement proficient guys to come and undertake the processes involved in this arrangement.
How can it be, sir, that you have an institution like this, a law like this? You describe it so well, and sometimes you go down the street and people can still suggest to you that there's even more corruption now, they would say.
I wouldn't understand.
You would understand
from what angle,
how they arrived at that.
Yeah, how people will arrive at that, because I think it's rather the opposite. Because of the existence of this law, and because this is a law that has prescribed punishment in advance.
Have you punished anybody?
We've done an assessment of 100 entities. We have developed an assessment tool which is being recognized even by the World Body, the World Bank. We have conducted 100 entities, and next week we are meeting all the heads of these 100 entities to show them for the first time the outcome of this results and the infringements that were observed when the assessment was conducted.
Have you punished anybody?
No. What I'm saying is that we go from one stage to the other.
Will you punish anybody?
We will punish anybody that infringes on the law.
How will you punish them? They'll go to court?
Yes, of course.
And they'll be jailed?
For 5 years.
For stealing public money?
No, for 5 years. The law says any infraction of any provision of this law will be subject to 1,000 penalty units and 5 years jail sentence or both. So they
won't be just asked to go home?
No, it's not a matter of go
That's
home.
That's refreshing, because I've seen people, in this country, people steal goats and they go to jail.
That's right.
People take government money and they get told you just bring the money back and they go. People who steal goats must return the goats and then be let loose.
That's right, yes. And I'm telling you that I used to tell people that this time around, the judges are going to have it a lot easier in sending people to jail. Because they just have to pick the law and ask the corporate, have you infringed on any provision? I told you we're talking of 99 provisions of this law. And that section 92, which deals with offenses relating to this law, talks about any infringement.
Do you feel good about your job? Do you feel that you can make a difference, really?
Absolutely good.
You feel good about it?
I have a very great passion for the job I'm doing. And everybody who has had the opportunity of interacting with me would never take that away from me.
So you feel good about the fact that you are there to fight corruption?
Well, I feel good to see that procurement will be practiced, within the framework
But
of
has
this
a
law.
purpose. But it has a purpose. I'm saying ultimately you're practicing it, and the whole purpose is that we all sort of have a lot more transparency and so on. Those are values you share. You want that to be the case.
Yes, and that is why I'm saying I am so elated to be where I am.
Yeah.
Having gone into the practice of procurement all these years, and now being being the head of an oversight body, knowing the difficulties at the operational level, and being able to look in between the law and see the necessary reviews that will make the operationalization a lot more, appropriate.
What do you make, finally, sir, of that whole argument about how some of these things have created paralysis? People don't quite understand it. They fear to take decisions. They think it's not too clear. Next thing you know, I go and buy this, I'm going to get jailed, so then nobody does anything. Is that a problem?
It is a problem.
It is a problem.
I would not hide from that fact. It is a problem because that is what I said, that the law has become a disincentive by itself to corruption.
Just the existence of the law.
The mere existence, the fear that if I don't do it right, I will go to jail.
There was no law before?
There were laws. I mean, I didn't go into the key witness.
But there were laws in the past?
There were laws. I mean, the Ghana Supply Commission law, they were buying all over the place. Nobody was auditing them. There were administrative instructions.
So we have a better system
There were legislative instruments, which were all not codified.
Yeah.
But now we are talking of a well-structured, standardized procedures and regulations. Nobody under the scope of this law can use his own tender documents apart from the prescribed tender documents for whichever job or whichever works that you want to do. And to me, if we are able to go this way, and with people like us with this kind of passion, passion, one, to assist people to understand, and two, to encourage people that if we go and abide by these regulations and rules, Ghana is the victor.
Good luck, sir.
Thank you very much.
I thank you too for coming.
Yes.